Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful June the 4th, 2019. Grondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, everybody was wearing blue last night. It seemed to come up with a victory, whether it was in baseball, hockey, basketball.
Yep.
That didn't get played last night, but over the Philippines it did.
Yep.
Team wearing blue won. But everybody is excited, Charlton, about the opportunity to close out some championships right now in some various sports.
Well, I talk about championships, and even POTUS was happy going across the pond today, and he had a lot of conversations about protest or no protest. It's all fair and love and war. I really love the way the British take the time to honor their leaders, and we'll see how that happens with that meeting going over there, talking about what's good and bad about the union. They said this over $100 billion will be pumped in to the cause between the United States and Britain. That's for military services, not necessarily feeding people, but it's all fair and love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. So, Big C, I don't know if you saw that POTUS was over there and he was having some conversations about how to make these trade agreements better. But when anyone mentions $100 trillion, that's a lot of money, but it was mostly for military and some trade, not necessarily feeding people. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, we don't have a lot of trade with the European Union, Charlton. It's not our major trade partner. We do have military,
Contracts.
cohabitations with them as far as operations. But, you know, when you talk about helping people, Charlton, we haven't seen a lot of that in all of the talk from the Oval Office. You know, there's always talking about how jobs have increased in America, but every time we look around, Charlton, in the job rate, there's people losing jobs as well. So you might have job increase, but it's an offset with people losing their job when you talk about the unemployment rate. People's unemployment benefits expire.
Yeah.
So it's not like they got a job. It's just they no longer can receive benefits for that. So that number falls out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we get a lot of false narratives, fake news when it comes from the Oval Office, Charlton, about what's actually occurring with American citizens. You just have to ask the average person, are you better off today than what you were 3 years ago?
Wow,
I mean, everything has an increase in income and all of that. But when you look at what you're paying, and you're paying more at the pump for gasoline, you're paying more at the grocery store for consumption of nutrition.
Yeah.
You're paying more for what you spend for household goods, Charlton. On airfare, you're paying more. Are you better off actually in what you're spending today than what you were 3 years ago?
Well, I know that oftentimes you can't please everybody, and that's that came up in the meeting. But what I was hoping I would hear something about was this military veterans that need help in the United States and even worldwide. But there's an 800 number that we like to give out. And it's one thing to talk about building up the military. But what do you do with people when they come back home and they're no longer in the service and they're having issues? 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. That's a National Suicide Prevention Hotline. You can also text it 838-255. That's 838-255. So no matter what we do with world leaders getting together, it's always great to have dialogue, and I at least appreciate that, even if it's called fake news. I want to come back to the United States, and you think about what it's like to be a fighter, and not just someone that's in the ring, but we talked about the NHL and how the Boston Bruins, they look like a better team. And we wondered if St. Louis would get a win. And you think about that win they got in Boston, that turned the tides. They come back home, they were blown out. But last night, the St. Louis Blues, it was their first ever win in a home game for the Stanley Cup Finals in the history of that organization. They beat Boston 4-2. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, it was a momentous moment for that state and for that city, Charlton, to have their first NHL victory at home in 4 different Cup series.
Yeah.
And to even up the series against the powerful Boston Bruins, who seemed like they were just going to run away with the series. And scoring 4 goals last night for St. Louis, Charlton, what was the most goals that they scored in any single game. Their previous high was 3 in an overtime defeat of Boston in Game 2.
Yep.
So maybe they've gotten their offense on track and they've figured out Tuscan Rask, who has just been a stalwart in the goal. You know, he's been a wall against everybody that he has faced.
Yep.
So as we think about how the Boston Bruins have gotten to this point in the series, you also got to be thankful for what the St. Louis Bruins St. Louis Blues have done, Charlton, giving their fans hope, evening is up, and giving them a chance to hopefully hoist the Stanley Cup.
I would like to see that just because of so many things that we talked about in St. Louis. They lost their football team, the St. Louis Cardinals. They went over to Arizona. Why would you leave St. Louis where it rains a lot to the desert where it's hot, Big C? It can't just be for the taxes, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you think about all of what St. Louis has lost over time, Charlton, they've had the St. Louis Browns. They've had the St. Louis Cardinals in football. They've had the Los Angeles Rams in football. They had the Spirit of St. Louis in the ABA in basketball, which is now still part of the NBA. They just don't field the team. It is the only city in the United States that has an NBA team that does not play. Ironically, the NBA has 31 teams, and the Spirit of St. Louis is the 31st NBA team. They have an agreement not to dress a team out. So when you think about this city's long run, you know, and futility when it comes to hockey, they have won World Series with the Cardinals. You think about Tony La Russa wins 2 of them while he was managing the Cardinals. You know, during the heyday of the Big Red Bird, Mark McGuire leading the way, Charlton. But when you think about the futility that they've suffered with the hockey team, being the worst team in the NHL January 2nd of this year, and now they're in the Stanley Cup, being a very competitive team. This is what sports is all about. You can go from worst to first and have an opportunity to be the greatest.
That is so true. And I know when you think about, they had even the St. Louis, the Billikens, the men's basketball, the St. Louis FC, their soccer team, and the women's also, the Billikens, the Spirit of St. Louis that you talked about, St. Louis Stampede, the St. Louis Eagles in their hockey, St. Louis Blues, of course. If they were to win Lord Stanley's Cup, with all the talk of the teams that have left St. Louis, the St. Louis Lions, they've been a soccer team in St. Louis, St. Louis Flyers, St. Louis Bombers, the St. Louis Gunners. I mean, what a great part of the country. Mississippi River runs through it. They have the Arch. And you would think it would be a central location for teams to stay there. I know the population is just like any other major city. They have some segregated communities, but they have some integrated communities too. The St. Louis Bombers, their rugby football. There's a lot. The St. Louis All-Stars. They have the St. Louis Braves that had been a part of that organization. And then there's just so much. Even the St. Louis Terriers, Big C, St. Louis Vipers, the AC St. Louis. There's so much that's happened. So this team right now, with the Rams having won a Super Bowl and leaving, just like the Raiders have won Super Bowls in Oakland and leaving, because they can really believe now, Big C. They really couldn't believe after Game 1. Maybe even after Game 2, they couldn't believe that they could compete with the Boston Bruins. But if they could win the Lord Stanley's Cup, what does it mean to this great city that has been deserted by so many of their teams, Big C? Your thoughts?
When you think about the Stanley Cup, it's the most heralded trophy in all of professional sports, even beyond the World Series trophy, Charlton. When you think of the legacy of the Stanley Cup and the great men that have hoisted that cup over the decades, you know, to have that and to be able to carry it around and cherish it. You know, I love the presentation of the Stanley Cup, Charlton. It's carried to every Stanley Cup Finals game, and they carry it in a case, and it's guarded by a couple of Mounties, Charlton. So it has security with it at all times. So you think about how heralded this trophy is and what it means to people who have watched hockey and appreciate that game over the decades. And we talk about the Toronto Raptors, Charlton, you know, being followed by an entire country. An entire country of Canada, Charlton, watches the Stanley Cup. I know it hurts them when they don't have a team participating in it, Charlton. And you think about some of the smaller markets in Canada, but the appreciation of what that cup means to an entire country. It's even beyond what the Toronto Raptors means to the nation of Canada.
And it's amazing. So we hope that you could think of St. Louis being maybe a small market team, even though they're just centrally located in the middle of the United States. And if I think about some of the players that have been a part of not just their hockey empire, but when you think about what they've done in baseball, I was watching some games when the Giants used to go in there and play, and it was when they played at the old stadium. They had the AstroTurf. Now it gets very hot and humid in St. Louis, but we talked about Serge Ibaka and what he eats in his home country. I know there's some bugs that are in St. Louis that are bigger than the size of golf balls, and I hear they're very nutritious. Big C, your thoughts? Have you ever experienced that?
Well, Charlton, the only thing I'm going to do with a bug is go fishing with it. I mean, we have some bugs down here that make you move your foot when they're walking across the ground because you don't want them to trample across your toes and everything.
Yep.
But I mean, that's part of the Midwestern humidity, Charlton, and Southern humidity that everybody deals with. We have bugs on steroids around here.
Yeah, and from what I understand, they may really be on steroids. A lot of people use them as pets. But I'm turning the tide too. I know Boston wins almost everything. They have the great university in Cambridge and Harvard. They have the Patriots, of course. Used to be the team that was kind of at the abyss in the AFC East. Now they're winning everything over the last 2 decades. We know the legacy of the Boston Red Sox. The great Boston Celtics, more NBA championships than any team in the NBA. And now you have the Bruins. And I'm sure if Boston, this seems to be a fair city, I'm sure that some of their fans are so nice, they wouldn't mind letting St. Louis have at least one championship coming up. Big, so your thoughts?
Well, greed is a great thing to have in sports.
Yeah.
This is the one place you don't want equity in life, being greedy in sports. You want it all. You think about this as the third Stanley Cup Finals in the last 10 years that the Bruins have been in. We know the Patriots have participated in 9 Super Bowls in the last 15 years.
Yep.
We know that the Boston Celtics had won another NBA title less than a decade ago. And you look at the Boston Red Sox. They have 3 World Series titles in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
So it's nothing about being greedy as a fan.
Yeah.
As people say, we'd like to see somebody else win. That's always the losing teams that say that. The winning teams in cities never say that.
Yeah, that's funny. So congratulations. The Blues have won more games than I thought they'd win. I was thinking they would get knocked out in 5 just based on how Boston jumped on them. And they were down early in game 1 and they came back and won it. And then you looked at what the moxie of St. Louis and the power plays where Boston got 4 goals just the other night. And seeing St. Louis is great for the great Midwest. I want to speak about something that I think is so important, and it also hails from the great Midwest, Big C. And I know people can say, well, why does it really matter? Because everybody has liberty and justice for all and equal opportunity. But I want to applaud the university. Well, actually, I want to applaud the Big Ten. It's amazing when we look at integration and you look at all the African American athletes all over the history of sports. And you look at one of America's most dominant conferences, I guess the conference that participates in championships in almost every sport. And it's the first time that an African-American commissioner has been named commissioner in the Big Ten. Kevin Warren, he's named the next commissioner of the Big Ten Conference. He'll replace Jim Delaney, who's going to retire in 2020 after 30 years of service. Now, we just had Juwan Howard go up to Michigan. And, there's so much about how we're going to create diversity in the workforce. It's really about opportunity. No one says, give me opportunity if I can't compete. But give me your feeling on why it took so long and what it means for African-American to be the leader of the Big Ten when most of the dominant athletes also are African-American. Big, so your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, is when preparation meets opportunity. One of the things that I've always been an advocate of, Charlton, is called education.
Yeah.
And when you surround yourself with the properly educated people, Charlton, then opportunity presents itself.
Yeah.
And when you say taking a long time, you got to look, it's only been 50 years. Not a long time. 50 years in the sports world with this integration has taken full effect in America.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been that long. And for Delaney to be able to move in this direction, Charlton, and have the Big Ten have a director who's African American.
Yeah.
It's been a trailblazing past couple of years in sports when you look at the heights that African Americans have been reaching, Charlton, as head coaches and now a commissioner of one of the Power 5 conferences in America. That's a huge stride. But when you think about his background, his background in being an executive, running the Minnesota Vikings for 15 years, the CEO of the Minnesota Vikings. This means he's running $1 billion corporation, Charlton. And so when you look at the wherewithal and the success that he's had with this club over time and managing the financials of that club, puts him in the perfect seat, Charlton, to run the Big Ten. But this is what you need. There's always got to be an icebreaker when it comes to sports. I mean, we only look from an African-American perspective as at the athletes. We're not looking at the managerial and ownership perspective. There's been some attempts over the years. I mean, you think about how the media has beat up Magic Johnson from walking away from the circus called the Los Angeles Lakers. Everybody wants to say that LeBron James is the problem with the Lakers. No one is saying that the white management is the problem with the Los Angeles Lakers.
No.
They're blaming it on the black guys. And so that's always the easy way out. You take the racial part of society, say the black guys are the problem. It was okay with just the white people. But when we look at the Big Ten making this move, Charlton, what's the next move? That's what we're looking at. Not just stopping with one commissioner, but multiple commissioners throughout. Not just male, but female also. When opportunity becomes equality in America, then we'll have social and economic justice. We talked yesterday about the Poor People's March on Washington. That was in 1968, led by Dr. Ralph Abernathy. This is a product of it, Charlton. When you look at this commissioner, at the time when he was born, Charlton, he was considered one of the poor, unopportunistic people in America. He would have not had this opportunity 50 years ago at the Poor People's March. So look at the strides that have been made since the Poor People's March yesterday, 50 years ago, till today, the Big Ten naming an African-American CEO.
I think that's very impressive. But 50 years is half a lifetime, and it's just a matter of how many doors are going to be opened up. Also, as you mentioned, running the Vikings for since 2015, 14 years in their front office. He also played college basketball at Penn and Grand Canyon University. And so here's someone who had an athletic background. And I know some people say, well, don't just focus on athletics, but it does play a major part. It builds self-esteem. It teaches you how to work with people. And I would say for my black brethren, many of us know that athletics is sometimes, it's a world that you enter and people show you affinity. They show you love, maybe outside of your own family for the very first time. And I think many black athletes can attest to that. If you're not in some uniform, sometimes you're just kind of walked away from, or maybe someone tucks the purse on the other side of the body when you're walking down the hallway. I mean, we've seen those little subtleties. But when you have a uniform on, people open that door. So I appreciate the fact that he has that opportunity. And I know it's going to open up more doors for more people. They just got to walk through it.
A big key, Charlton, let me let you know a big key with athletes. One of the things a lot of athletes don't do, and they have this thing about them, because when a lot of them get released from teams, is that they never want to have an affiliation with them again. It's called alumni associations, Charlton. You have to go back and be an ambassador with the organization that you were with. You have to attend all of the events, because when you attend these events, Charlton, you're socializing with billionaires. You're socializing with other millionaires, but you also socialize with billionaires. If you want to find a way to get into the Billionaires Boys Club, Charlton, you have to continue to be a part of an organization once you leave that organization. You just can't cut ties and say, I'm retiring and I'm going to go off and fish and go on vacation for the rest of my life and live off the money I made. If you want to learn how to achieve the next level, Charlton, you're not going to do it just with the guys that you played with on the field or on the court. You got to get next to the executives, Charlton, that have run the leagues. You got to sit down with the commissioners. You got to sit down with the owners. You got to sit down with the GMs. Find out the inner workings of an organization. That's how, when you want to move into management, into ownership, Charlton, it's called mentorship. So if you're not around these people and find out what their thought process is and how they've acquired things and how they keep things, Charlton, you'll never ascend to those points.
Let me get your feeling on something, because, and I like what you're saying, I know, and we advocate about it all the time, there's times when people can complain about anything, but it's not complaining, it's just bringing attention to it. For example, when women were fighting for the right to vote, they were not complaining, they brought attention to it. You talked about Abernathy and Dr. King and how they had the Poor People's March. They were not complaining. They were bringing attention to it. Just like anything else, you got to advocate for what you want. You know how schools will spend millions of dollars in their athletic programs, and they'll go all around the country looking at some of the smallest towns to find the next great athlete. Do you see some of that push being turned to find the next best, perhaps, commissioner of a conference or coach? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that commissioner, just as I was speaking about, has to bring himself to the forefront.
Yeah.
You're not going to go knock on somebody's door and say, hey, do you want to come be the commissioner? It's an earnest process. When you talked about where he played at Grand Canyon and at Penn, athletically. But also, beyond that, Charlton, was his academics. He didn't stop at just being an athlete. He made sure he got the degrees and the masters, the doctorate. Those are the things that he cherished most. He didn't worry about once his playing days are over, Charlton. He was looking at perpetuating life beyond athletics.
Yeah.
And that's my point, is that too many athletes stop life at athletics.
Yep.
Yes, now all athletes, Charlton, are instant millionaires when you're playing a sport.
Yeah.
It's become immune. People are immune to making $1 million now. People say, wow, look at all the black millionaires. Yeah, they play sports. Look at all the white billionaires that own them. They can control their life.
Yeah.
That's the thing you're looking at. So when you scour these little towns, Charlton, yes, you don't know where the next NFL owner is going to come from.
Yeah.
All of them have different backgrounds. All professional owners have different backgrounds. They all weren't born into the teams.
Yep.
People have made their money in strange ways. But, they've made it. When you think about the owners of sports organizations, Charlton, you think about the commissioners in these various leagues. They weren't striving to be a professional athlete for their entire life. They were striving to be an executive.
Yeah.
And that's why I always talk about education. You got to learn how to read. You got to learn how to function
in
the boardroom, not in the locker room. Learn how to function in the boardroom. And I think that so many young minorities have forgotten about that, Charlton. They want to know how to function in the locker room. They want to know what the vertical is. They want to know what the 40 time is.
Yes.
How much they can bench. That's irrelevant when you're sitting as a CEO of a corporation.
I agree.
All they want to know is your club head speed on your golf club.
That's a very good. That's a very good. In fact, who cares about club head speed on the golf club if you can't aim it straight, Big C? But I understand, but you got to start somewhere.
Well, that's Tiger Woods.
That's Tiger Woods. Mike Garrett, African American, played football at the University of Southern California. He was the athletic director when the great Pete Carroll was there. Boy, they miss Pete. And won national championship. They were actually voted co-national champions when they beat Iowa in 2003. They beat them down in the Orange Bowl. And then they blew out Oklahoma, also in the Orange Bowl. And I believe that was 55-19, that score. And they had a win over Michigan in the Rose Bowl. And then they lost in the Rose Bowl also to Texas. That was under Mike Garrett. Now, he wasn't commissioner of the Pac-10 at that time, but he was the commissioner at USC. But I don't see that opening any doors for more people of color to have that role outside of the uniform. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about USC, Charlton, you think about their last 3 athletic directors.
Yeah.
They've all been former players.
Yeah.
Pat Hayden, Mike Garrett, and now Lynn Swann, who's the athletic director at USC.
Yeah.
So there are ways, Charlton, to advance.
Yeah.
Those guys, Charlton, not only did they have illustrious careers as professional and collegiate players, but academics was in the forefront of what they were doing. Lynn Swann went into politics back in Pennsylvania before he came back and became the athletic director at his alma mater.
Yes.
There are many universities across this country, Charlton, where they have former athletes that have come in and been the athletic director, head coaches in various sports. But to do those things, Charlton, you have to have that degree, that upper level degree.
Yeah.
Not only are you a great player, but you also are an administrator. These are the things that they look for.
Yeah.
Does everybody strive for that? When you look at the young athlete today, Charlton, first thing we see is them spending money. You look at draft night. Everybody walks up there with $100,000 worth of jewelry and clothes on draft night.
Crazy.
They're thinking about the present. They're not thinking about their future.
Yeah.
When we look at the young athletes now that are one and done and out of college, and then even next year in baseball, basketball, they're going to get rid of the one and done rule and let them come right out of high school. Baseball, drafting kids right out of high school at 18.
Yeah.
Putting them in the minor leagues, Charlton. We just saw the one kid that the Braves drafted say, I'm going to Japan. I'm going to get paid.
Right.
I'm not worried about the minor leagues.
Right.
I'm going to make my $10 million right now. You guys can, flow around with the chump change later.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray,
Yeah.
was drafted in the first round, said, no, I'm going to make even more money.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the football. And so he went to the NFL. He got 8 times as much money as he got from the Oakland A's with the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
That was a business decision. But when we look at athletes, Charlton, and we revel right now with the finals that are going on in the NHL, you realize that the average hockey player is drafted at the age of 16?
Wow.
Not even going to high school, out of junior hockey at the average age of 16. That's the first round draft pick in the NHL. You can be 16 years of age. So they're not thinking about their future either. They're trying to grab the money. And so when we look at the short-term career of an NFL athlete, the average career is 3 years.
Yeah.
Don't sit there and look at the guys who played 10, 12, 14. The average career is 3 years long. I mean, the Patriots just cut Stefarius Jenkins, tight end, today.
Wow.
They signed him a month ago.
Yeah.
They cut him today. So his career with the Patriots was a month long.
Yeah.
So when we think about athletes, when you're released by an organization or you retire, what is the next step? We do see a few analysts on TV and radio like what we do.
Right.
But what is the next step? How many of these athletes get into apprentice programs, Charlton?
Yeah.
Think about that. All of a sudden, you take an apprentice job where you're doing it for free. They don't want to do that. But sometimes that's the segue into management, Charlton.
Yeah.
Is that you have to go in, just like at a radio station, they bring in apprentice, where they going in and they're doing grunt work for free. Next thing you know, they get an on-air gig late night.
Yeah.
Who knows? They might become their primetime show.
Yep, that's true.
You don't get athletes willing to dedicate themselves like that, Charlton. You can go back to college and be a grad assistant on a program.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't graduated, at least they'll pay your tuition where you can get your degree. But, I got several $1 million in the bank.
Yep.
I don't want the degree. I can afford to pay for the rest of my life. But being that grad assistant, moving into a coaching position, Charlton, you never know if you might have become the head coach.
Yeah.
If you don't go out and take the challenge, you don't know what you're missing or can't experience.
That's very true. And I hope that more people can show men of all color how to get in. I just know that a lot of my white friends, even when I was in college and I did the internships at the news stations, TV and radio, the job offers were given to my white friends, my white classmates, and even when I was working in media, oftentimes it was the same thing. I know I got in by the help of a white man, but I put in the time, and I just hope that...
But also, Charlton, how many people did you see look like you on television at that time? And just like I said about 50 years ago with the Poor People's March in Washington, and look at where we've gone today, 50 years later. We got a black commissioner of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
50 years ago, he wouldn't have had a chance. And I'm going to assume you were probably in college 25, 30 years ago. How many black faces did you see on television, even in your local market?
Yeah, not that many. And
so when you look at the numbers that are on television now on all the different channels, there's been an expeditious growth of that.
Yeah.
So there always have to be trailblazers, Charlton, who don't ascend to the top level, but they open roads for those who come behind them.
Yeah.
You think about Harriet Tubman with the Underground Railroad.
Oh, yeah.
From slavery.
Yeah.
She opened the door for slaves to be free, Charlton.
Yep.
She didn't get a chance to enjoy that a long life, but she got many slaves out of bondage to give them the opportunity to go out and grow as a family, as a culture in society.
Yeah.
But what she started, even though she didn't reap the benefits of it, Charlton, her life work was to save others from bondage.
Yes.
But the legacy that she left created an institution, Charlton, of aspiring black people.
Yep, and that's just part of telling those stories so that young people can realize not everybody's going to become the next LeBron James or become the next Michael Jordan or the next Tiger Woods or whatever some athlete is. And I'm just thinking almost...
How many young athletes, Charlton, whenever you go around, and I know you deal with AAU, how many of those guys ever say that they want to be in Magic Johnson's position? How many of those guys say they want to be in Rich Paul's position? In Joe Dumars' position?
Right.
None of the guys that you deal with at an AAU level are talking about the executives. They're only talking about the players.
The players, yeah.
How many of them say that they want to be Juwan Howard, the next coach at Michigan? How many want to be Penny Hardaway, the coach at Memphis? This is what the disconnect is that the athlete only sees short term.
Right.
The athlete sees that I can dribble, that I can run. This is what I see. I don't see myself as running a corporation. We just get the first African-American commissioner of the Big Ten today, of a Power 5 conference.
Yes.
You can go to any AAU game for the next 5 years, and none of those players will know who he is.
That's a very good point, and that's why they have the Big C Sports Show to bring it out, because they want to hear it on other networks. I want to say something before we go to our break, and I always love just acknowledging, especially seeing POTUS going across the pond, having conversations about trade and $100 billion being infused into their agreement. Madam C.J. Walker, African-American over 100 years ago, since her death, Madam C.J. Walker, she was one of the first American black female millionaires in this country. Not that many people know who she was, but she did that in Jim Crow. Massed over a millionaire status in Jim Crow. So it's about opportunity, and if we can keep talking about it, maybe we can share that light on more people, and that's what I think I love about being on the Big C Sports Show. I do want to tell people that with everything that we do, we just ask you to Google whatever we say, because we want to be held, factually accountable too. And that's part of what we do with Big C Sports. What we're going to do right now is take what's called the Big C pause, and we'll come back in just a moment, and we hope that you'll join us as well. All right, Big C, we are back on the Big C Sports Show after our Big C pause. And you can follow Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network, on iHeartRadio podcast. You can find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can find us on Spreaker. You can find us on YouTube. They're doing the NBA Finals right now. You can find us on Comcast, Xfinity Comcast. But what I really like, Big C, when you walk into the house, if you have that app called Alexa, you can say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and you'll hear our sponsors, and then the show comes up. So we thank our sponsors for their growth and support. And I just know it's all fair and love and war. So again, congratulations with the Big Ten doing something. I hope that Kevin Warren can realize they have more than 10 teams. Big C, you think he's going to change it to the Big 19 Conference? Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think he'll make that move. I think it's etched in stone what the conference is.
Yeah.
But I hope that young athletes aspire to be what Mr. Warren is, Charlton. An executive running professional organizations. I mean, the Big Ten is a professional organization, just like the Minnesota Vikings were, Charlton.
Yeah.
But you don't get there just playing the game.
Right.
You have to understand what makes the game work, what makes sports work. And that's one of the things I wish more young athletes, especially African-American athletes, Charlton, is that they would look into the business end of things.
Yep.
To learn business management, not just take basket weaving or some physical ed class, Charlton.
Yeah.
Take some business management. Understand what the structure of these organizations are.
And ironically, there's a running back for the University of Michigan under the great Jim Harlow he's suspended because he's academically unqualified. I'm not going to name his name for a minor, but what you're saying holds true. A player is being disqualified on a team that has a chance and aspirations for a Big Ten championship. And then we have African-American commissioner for the whole conference. But if you don't have the grades, it doesn't matter what your color is. They will find a way to get you out of that program. I want to bring up something that happened with the NBA. One of the prodigal kids of the NBA, prodigal men, I'll say, Kawhi Leonard. Now, everybody wants to get a Nike sponsorship. The Nike's a great sponsorship. In fact, the story how Phil Knight started, it's a like American Icon story. He didn't start from the top. He started from the bottom, and now he's up. But he's suing them over the claw. I guess there were some legal issues when lawyers get involved. Obviously, they're probably going to settle it, Big C. And I want to get your feelings on why an athlete can sue one of the most powerful conglomerates that really clothes and dresses a lot of the sports teams and college teams in this country. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he's not a client of Nike. He works for New Balance.
Yeah.
And so he wants to patent the word claw.
Yeah.
Now, I think the word claw has been around for a long, long time and used on many, many different things, Charlton.
Yeah.
It just happens to be a moniker of Kawhi Leonard.
Yes.
He didn't put out a patent on it at any time. I mean, and suing Nike, that's a long river that you got to go up. I mean,
the Niagara Falls.
It's a tough current.
Like Niagara Falls.
Everybody's reaching for something. I mean, we got college athletes trying to get paid for their likeness.
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard, because his moniker is the Claw. He wants to use it, and I'm quite sure that some athlete has used that before, Charles.
Oh, yeah.
At least a wrestler
Yeah.
has had the hand in the cloth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's not the first to use it. I understand him wanting to have it
Yeah.
and say that it's his, that he invented it.
Yeah.
But there's no new words in the dictionary. I just saw the National Spelling Bee, and there were 8 kids
Yeah.
that won it all. They run out of words in the dictionary.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is something that everybody does. Everybody wants to have their hand in the pot.
Yep.
And good luck to Kawhi, because if he can beat Nike, Charlton,
Oh, my goodness.
the door is open for everybody.
Yeah, that means he's not going to beat Nike, Big Z. That's just Judge, just settle right now. That's probably what Kawhi can do. Good or bad timing that they're in the finals. I would say, I will answer that own question. It's not him going to the court, it's his lawyer. So whether he's in the finals or not, he's still focused on jump shots. Your thoughts?
Well, no, I mean, as an athlete, this is the reason why you hire representatives.
Yeah.
They handle all of the things. It's like in free agency. You know, your representative is going to call you and say, hey, would you like to be a member of this team?
Yeah.
You said, make it happen. He'll call you back in a few minutes.
Yep.
The deal is done.
Yeah.
Because it's already been negotiated out what they're willing to give you. They just contact your representative telling you what's on the table, what you can have if you decide to come here.
With that being said, and I want you to just reiterate something. When guys say, I'm going to call my representative, isn't that how guys can blow $100 million in 5 years? Because they don't know what their representatives are doing. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, you need to have more than one person. You don't let one person handle all your finances. And I've always been in that mode when it comes to athletes. Everybody say, okay, I got an agent. You don't need an agent. You need an accountant.
Yep.
You need a contract lawyer. So you pay the guy for the time that he does. If
Pay him by the hour.
20 hours negotiating
Pay him
your
by the hour.
contract,
Yep.
you're paying for 20 hours.
Yeah.
Your accountant is handling your finances.
Yep.
You get an investment banker that handles your investments. He's not, you know, when you give it all to one person, that power to one agency,
Yep.
you never know where your money's going because one person has control of everything. When you have multiple entities watching each other, Charlton, now your money's a little more secure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I want you to just add on to that. Because as you said, a lot of those kids in AAU, they're focused on how can they be the next star athlete or the next star whatever. But they got to realize they're going to meet men that they've never met before that's going to come to them, and they're going to tell them how they can make them rich. And these are guys you have not known for the past 4 or 5 years of your life. And once they steal all your money by bad investments, just don't look at the ones that made it. Look at the guys that went through 50 million, 100 million. They didn't make the financial choices. It was some guy that did not know, most likely mainstream, different skin color, that said, listen, trust me, I'm going to make you rich. You already got $100 million. Why you need them? Your thoughts?
Well, the number one liability, Charlton, with young athletes is family. First, family. Family comes through you like a tornado. They cut through everything you have. You got family members you didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
You never even heard of them before. Everybody's in a financial crisis the minute you get some money. No one was making it until you got money. Then all of a sudden, every bill was due. Everything was needed. If you're a young athlete, there's 2 things that you need to do right off the bat. Make sure that your parents are taken care of. That's your number one priority. Number 2, you make sure you put that money in an endowment that you can't touch for 10 and 20-year segments. That way you'll always have money once you retire. You don't need to buy the half dozen cars. You don't need to buy the $5 million house. You don't need to buy all the jewelry. You can't wear the jewelry while you're playing anyway.
Some guys do.
Need all these watches?
Some guys do, Big
You know, you don't need a dozen watches on your wrist that's costing $3,000 and $4,000 to $15,000 a piece, Charlton.
Yeah.
But athletes, as I say, they don't take business management classes in college, so they don't understand money structure. Quick it comes and goes.
Yeah.
But back to the AAU kids that you're talking about, Charlton, a lot of that falls on the coaches.
Yeah.
Because the coaches are telling them how to be fundamentally sound physically.
Yeah.
They're not telling them how to be fundamentally sound mentally.
Yeah.
What they should aspire to be. They're telling them you got to run more sprints. You got to get more jump shots. You got to concentrate more on your free throws. They're not telling them what the 5 and 10-year plan is for them while they're playing AAU basketball. What is your 5-year financial and educational plan?
Yeah.
What is your 10-year financial plan? They're not discussing that with the kids, so the coaches are doing these young kids a disservice because they're telling them how great they are and how they're going to go dominate an opponent they're not explaining to them how they need to learn how to dominate life.
Yeah, and I believe that's true, and it's also a part of the parents not to leave it up to some guy running a camp, because oftentimes these camps are ran by guys who couldn't make it. So they found a way to put out flyers and invite kids to come to their camp. But you don't see them playing anymore, so how are they going to tell you how to make it? I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
But that parent, as you just spoke about, is there with them all the time.
Yeah.
That parent is the one shoveling that kid to that camp.
Yeah.
You think about the money that the parent invests in that camp. Why can't this parent invest in a life insurance policy for that kid? They spend $2,000 or $3,000 getting this kid through various camps while they're going through high school. That kid, if he's going to develop as an athlete, he's going to develop. The camp is not going to make him any better.
Yeah.
He can do that. If he can run, he can run. If he can jump, he can jump. But when that parent is not preparing that child for the future of life, and they're preparing them just for athletics, if it is the fault of the parent, because it's the shortcoming that parent is living vicariously through that child.
Yeah, I remember one more story on the AAU and the youth. I remember when I was coming up many moons ago, if you wanted to do something, you went to your high school, and you either made the team or you didn't. But now it seems like there was a camp down at UCLA. I think they're in a good shape to win a softball national championship, and for the men too. But there was a camp down at UCLA, and they're all over the country, so I'm not just calling out UCLA. But there were over 1,000 kids at a camp that cost about $1,000 to go for 2 days. It was a weekend. And I was talking to one of the parents that spent money to go to this camp that cost over $1,000 for 2 days. And she said her son must have had maybe 15 shots. 15. Not 1,500, 15 shots. But if you go to a local high school, you'll probably get 150 shots, Big C, and it don't cost $1,000 for a 2 day. That's just a thought. So look into the guys that are saying we're going to teach our kid how to be pro, because they have.
When I was growing up,
yeah,
I played 4 sports in high school.
Yeah.
I started off playing football. From football, went right there from basketball. We had a Friday night game, the final game of the season.
Yeah.
We had a Thursday night game, basketball, the next week. So we went right from football practice to basketball practice.
Yeah.
From there, Charleston, we went to baseball and track and field. So we participated in all of those things. You learned how to be a multifaceted athlete, not a one-dimensional athlete.
Yeah.
And that's what honed your athletic skills. Not by going to a camp, but getting reps. One of the things we talk about Tiger Woods with, he's not getting enough competitive reps.
Yeah.
And so when he comes tournament time, the pressure builds up on him because he's not seeing those guys on the practice course. He's seeing them in competition, so your adrenaline level is a little different.
Yeah.
And that's the things with these athletes. When you look at these football players, think of the skills that basketball is going to teach you playing football. It's going to teach you a lot of agility, Charlton, that you may not utilize all the time in a football game, but when it comes there, you have that explosiveness about you, as well as in baseball. It teaches that eye-hand coordination when you're playing defense. So when athletes now only want to specialize in one sport, via football, via basketball, and not many minorities now want to play baseball. I'm watching the College World Series regional games, Charlton. I'm seeing very few African-American kids out there playing baseball.
Yeah.
Because they've been sold on that they can only be a basketball player.
Yep.
I think that's bad parenting, not giving your child an opportunity to play multiple sports.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of that onus on the parents to say, no, you're going to be a great basketball player, son or daughter. You're going to be a great football player, son. Don't worry about baseball.
Yeah.
If you're a multifaceted athlete and give yourself an opportunity like Kyler Murray, he was able to walk away from baseball and go to football because he had options.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders had options. Bo Jackson had options. Dave DeBusschere had options with the Knicks because he was pitching with the Detroit Tigers, wanted to play in the NBA, but being a multi-sport athlete, he wasn't going to win a title with the Tigers, but he won 2 NBA championships with the Knicks.
Yeah.
There's been many athletes over the decades. Brian Jordan played with the Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
So he had options. And John Elway had options. He used the Yankees against the NFL to get what he wanted. Many players, Charlton, of the earlier eras had many options because they were multi-sport athletes.
Multi-sport.
I think parents do kids an injustice, like you said, paying $1,000 for your kid to go to a basketball camp.
Yeah.
The kid gets 15 shots.
Yeah.
He can get that in the driveway at home.
In the driveway at home, and that's probably where it started. Speaking of getting 15, UCLA got 16, the women in the Women's College World Series. They blasted Oklahoma 16-3. There were 4 home runs hit in that game by the Bruins, and Rachel Garcia gave up 1 run in 5 innings, but she also hit one of the home runs, and they blasted the Sooners. And I know the Sooners were favored to win this series, but emotion can be, it's on the swing of the bat, Big C. And the way UCLA came out and hit the bat, you just wonder if they hit too many and scored too many runs in that game. Did they leave anything in the tank for game 2, which is happening tonight, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you think about Rachel Garcia for UCLA, Charlton. She's been the best player in women's baseball the past 2 years. She's been player of the year.
Yeah.
She is a dominant force on the mound and with the bat. She led them into this finals, Charlton, and she dominated, with the winning pitcher last night and hitting a home run.
Yeah.
So you have to favor UCLA. The thing about ladies college baseball, Charlton, is that they can play double hitters on the same day. They play back-to-back nights in that series. And so this is what they're accustomed to. Oklahoma got there via the long run.
Yeah.
They set a record this year in the regular season for home runs.
Yeah.
But Rachel has been able to hold them in check, Charlton, and has UCLA up 1-0 in the series.
Yeah, and I know that the men's side, they'll start playing again soon, but everybody knows it's great when you see just the participation in College World Series. I still like how they do the regional games where they'll let you go and one of the home teams can host it. That's important. I know they already choose Oklahoma City, and they'll go to Omaha for the men's side to crown their national champion, that neutral site. But it sure is great when people who don't have a lot of money, like college athletes, Big C, they can't go on an airplane and fly across the country to watch this. I would hope that they could just look at this later and, down the road and see if we can get at least one of those home teams to be the home participant. I want to just bring up... Yeah.
What baseball does, Charlton, beyond other sports, is that you know where the World Series is going to be every year. With the women, it's in Oklahoma City.
Yep.
With the men, it's going to be in Omaha.
Yeah.
So, and what they do is by putting that in the middle of the country, Charlton, is they lessen the travel burden on everybody.
Yeah.
For Oklahoma, it's a home series.
Yep.
When you think about it, Oklahoma City is not that far from Norman.
Yeah.
UCLA is the travel team, but they travel well, Charlton, because they have been in multiple World Series. But it makes it easier on the students who have an opportunity to travel, Charlton, because you can save up and know where you're going ahead of time.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to just get on Major League Baseball schedule, and then I want to close out on a few other things that I think I want to talk about. Major League Baseball. Right now is really one of the most ignored sports out there, but you have tonight's schedule. It's a big schedule. We have Chicago at Washington, and you have Atlanta at Pittsburgh, New York Yankees there at Toronto. Toronto, I think people are seeing how great of a sports town it is, especially for NBA. Minnesota at Cleveland. San Francisco Giants at the New York Mets. Tampa Bay at Detroit. Miami at Milwaukee. Boston is at Kansas City. And again, we talked about these Midwestern cities like St. Louis and Kansas City. It's great when a team like Boston, with all the tradition, comes into a stadium down at Kauffman Stadium over in Kansas City. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's always been a long-running tradition in Kansas City and St. Louis, Charlton. They even faced each other in the World Series back in the 70s, a very controversial series.
Yeah.
And Hump missed the call and got death threats. Charlton actually had to move.
Yeah.
But, you think about the uplifting of baseball in the Midwest, the Negro Baseball Hall of Fame is in Kansas City, even though it doesn't get any recognition by Major League broadcast, Charlton. I think one of the things that we have in this country that we never have parity when it talks about representation, and I think that Major League Baseball does a great injustice to the Negro League that once existed.
I greatly agree with that, Big C. That's why Big C Sports is here at Baltimore, at Texas, Colorado, at Chicago, Cincinnati at St. Louis. We talk about St. Louis all the time and how it'd be great if the Blues can find some way to rip that cup out of it wasn't Kawhi Leonard suing over the claw. The Bruins have a pretty good strong claw. You ever try to pull a cup out of a bear's claw, Big C? You think that's possible? Your thoughts?
Well, that's the claw that I've had. I mean, Bear Jerky is okay, but I don't want to be wrestling while he's alive.
No, you don't want to do that, Big C. So hopefully the good old boys will have a chance to do that. You have the L.A. Dodgers at Arizona, Oakland at the L.A. Angels, and Philadelphia at San Diego, with Houston at Seattle. I just got to bring up this thought. I know Seattle started the season. They were hosting Boston, World Series champions. Now, Houston's a good team. Seattle's a little bit struggling lately. But I looked at that beautiful field, Safeco Field, and I was trying to count with my fingers, Big C. It holds over 40,000 plus. I was having a hard time seeing if I could count 12,000. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you're in the same mode that Bryce Harper is, Charlton. I mean, baseball is not drawing a lot depending on the city unless you're in a pennant race.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems that baseball is going to struggle with. When you're up against the NHL playoffs, Charlton, you're up against the NBA playoffs.
Yeah.
Games that are really meaningful at this time. Baseball still has another 100 games left to play.
Yep.
And when you're competing against championship series, it's going to draw down your attendance.
Yeah, it's going to draw.
Just talking about draw down, we were talking about Bryce Harper the other night, Charlton, and his numbers versus Cody Bellinger.
Yeah.
Making $330 million.
Yep.
Bryce Harper again last night, Charlton, went 0 for 4 for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Wow.
Which makes his 22nd game this season that he has gone hitless. And for $330 million, and you have 22 games already in the season where you've gone 0 for 4, Charlton?
Yeah.
That's not good on the checkbook for the owner.
No, all they got to do is look up and see the empty seats, but that's all part of what happens in the world of sports. Big C, it's still early in the June. The NFL, which means mandatory minicamps, 9 teams started today. The New England Patriots, the Cleveland Browns, Denver Broncos, Detroit Lions, the Miami Dolphins, New York Giants, the New York Jets, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Washington Redskins. Big C, give me your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, what do 8 of those teams have in common other than the New England Patriots?
But they don't
None of them made the playoffs.
Yeah. Playoffs. Did you say playoffs, Big C? Yeah.
So the New England Patriots, you're thinking about why they stay good, Charlton.
Yeah.
They start competing when the bad teams compete. They don't go and live on their laurels and, we won the championship, so we're going to be the last team in the mandatory minicamp, Charlton. We're going to be there from day one when opportunity presents itself.
Yes.
Those other teams really need it. I mean, I was looking at the New York Jets and the media bashing of Le'Veon Bell already.
Why?
If the Jets don't succeed, it's going to be Le'Veon Bell who is going to be the problem, not the development of quarterback Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the media thinks that the Jets, and this is the only team in free agency that spent a guaranteed $15 million on 4 players. 4 players got $15 million guaranteed.
Wow.
Only one of them was offensive help for Sam Darnold.
Yes.
That was Le'Veon Bell. But they didn't sign Sam Darnold any receivers. They didn't bring him in a big-name tight end. So if you can key on just Le'Veon Bell and Sam Darnold still throwing the interceptions that he did, I mean, you're talking about an outlet pass instead of a pass down the field. It's not going to change the outlook of the New York Jets because they didn't sign any big-name free agents on the offensive line.
No.
So basically, you have the same team that you had last year, plus a Le'Veon Bell.
Well, even with Darnold, and I know they want to protect him, Le'Veon Bell can protect, but he can't be like Matt Ryan and try to be the reason they win or lose a Super Bowl if they can even get to the playoffs. But they got to turn around and hand the ball off. So when you're bringing a guy like Bell, does that say to the league you're going to change your offense and shelter that young man? I think it was Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens by handing the ball off, not by throwing downfield. Maybe they could try that instead of trying to prove that they were right by drafting Darnold, who led the Pac-12 at the time in interceptions, and he's also led the Conference AFC East in interceptions last year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, but you had Jamal Lewis. He had a 2,000-yard running back with Dilfer. That was the difference with the Baltimore Ravens. Plus, you had the best defense in the NFL.
That's right.
The New York Jets possess neither that. Le'Veon Bell is not a 2,000-yard running back.
No.
Sam Darnold is still learning the NFL game. I know a lot of people have anointed him as the next great quarterback in the NFL. Well, we'll see what type of strides he makes as a sophomore. Will he make the same strides that Trubisky did with the Chicago Bears, who took his team to a 12-4 record in division championship? If he doesn't make those strides that Mitch Trubisky did, Charlton, is he a failure or is Adam Gase a failure? We know that management did not improve the offensive line greatly with the Jets. So that's going to be a struggle right there for Le'Veon Bell. Well, that offensive line, it's not going to be the same as the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
This is always the problem in professional sports, Charlton, when you have free agency movement, whether it's a coach or whether it's players. You don't take their entire organization with you. So that changes up things. You look at Antonio Brown going to the Raiders.
Yeah.
He's not going to be the same Antonio Brown that he was in Pittsburgh. No. That relationship he had with Ben Roethlisberger developed over 7 years, Charlton. It didn't develop in one day.
That's right.
You look at Odell Beckham going to Cleveland. it's going to be a struggle in Cleveland with Odell Beckham. They're going to be fortunate enough to win 8 games this year, Charlton. If they win that many, they're not going to be above a 500 team. You got too many people wanting the football. You got 3 running backs, you got 3 wide receivers and a tight end, and a quarterback to try to keep them all happy. And he's just a kid.
Yeah.
So when you think about these teams, Charlton, I know people are talking about New England and say, well, Gronk is retired. Well, Brady's still there.
Yeah.
Before Gronk got there, Brady
was Brady. Yeah.
After Gronk is gone, Brady's still there.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick finds the needed pieces. He finds the players who fit what that organization is trying to do. He's not out there trying to satisfy egos, Charlton.
Yeah, no, that's true. I believe that. So it's nice when you see Tom Brady and he's 40-something. Tiger Woods is 40-something. Well, Tiger won a Masters in his 40s, and then Tom Brady won a Super Bowl in his 40s. So are they saying that 40 is the new 20? Does Frank Thomas need to start advertising that instead of how to get bigger, stronger, faster? Your thoughts, Big C?
Well, Charlton, that's one of the things we always advocate about athletes, doing the math.
Yeah.
You know, 2 20s equals a 40. So just double time right there.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. I want to swing it out to the West Coast, the land of vibranium. They say California's a golden state. It's hot in this golden state right now. And I know the real McCoy is how they put an acid on gold to see if it was real. And it was patented by a black man by the name of McCoy, so they started calling that the real McCoy. Is Golden State the real McCoy? But so many players banged up, you can really call them the Walking Dead lately. They have Durant, he has some injury issues. Klay Thompson's going to play, but he still has a hitch in his giddy up. But so does Kawhi Leonard. Looney, he's out for the series is what I'm hearing. Iguodala, he has a hitch in his giddy up. But they're all in the lineup. But Looney's been announced out for the series. And so that means a lot of this will fall on the weight of Boogie Cousins, who's not 100% healthy in his own right. I know Draymond Green is the glue that holds this team together, even though we have Curry, we have Thompson, we have Durant. But as long as Draymond Green is healthy and they let him bring that ball up and decide who gets it, Cousins is good at passing. They still got to have a healthy Thompson and Curry, because like back in the day they had what's called Run DMC, but Hardaway, and they had them good old boys. This is still a team that can win if Draymond's healthy. That make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, that was Richmond, Hardaway, and Mullins Run TMC. But when you look at the Golden State Warriors, everybody is talking about the Splash Brothers.
Yeah.
The real MVP of this team, Charlton, is Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr is the magician on the sideline. When you look at what he has done player personnel-wise, Charlton, in the last 2 series against Houston as well as Toronto, Charlton, finding the things that work, even again in the Portland series, finding the things that work for this organization, Charlton, to move them forward, getting the key player matchups on the court, looking up and down the bench to see who is the fit at that moment. When you play your entire team, Charlton, in Game 2 of an NBA Finals, that means that you know what you're doing coaching. Nick Nurse only played 8 players. Steve Kerr played 12. So when you're talking about who the Warriors need to win, Charlton, they need the next man up to win. When you talked about Looney being out for the series, Kevin Durant has not played in 3 weeks. No one has seen him, other than in the tunnel high-fiving. So when you talk about Draymond Green, basically having a triple-double in the finals and even in the last series, you look at the players off the bench. You don't feel pressure when you're the Golden State Warriors because you've been in this position.
Right.
That's the plus. The pressure is on the Toronto Raptors. That's where the pressure is, and Nick Nurse. Because you took Game 1 in a dominant fashion. But now you're tired just like the Golden State Warriors are. You have an injury with Kawhi Leonard that you're not discussing, nor will he discuss.
That's true.
Kyle Lowry is hurt. He's been laboring, Charlton. You're not going to foul out at the guard position if you're not laboring because you can't keep up. That's what's bothering him, and he's taking some unnecessary blows on these charges that he's taking. Pascal Siakam, Charlton, played his best game as a pro in Game 1. The problem with that is that you can't do that every night. The adrenaline was flowing in Game 1. It's hard to bring it back in Game 2, and now you're on the road in Game 3. If they don't get a big game from Siakam, Charlton, Golden State can win this game. If I'm Golden State, I would not play Klay Thompson, though. I would concede Game 3 if they outscores. but I would not play Klay Thompson because if he can get 4 days rest, 5 days rest on that hamstring, Charlton, it would be closer to new. But if he come out and he injures that hamstring, Charlton, in his game, he could be gone for the rest of the series. If you look at how Iguodala played tentatively in Game 2, other than knocking down those 2 big 3-point shots he had, he really was non-effective offensively because of his quad injury. So these are the things you got to keep in place. Does the overall need defeat this next game? And I think the overall need is more important than this next game for Golden State.
That takes a lot of confidence. They have the home court advantage right now. They can play 3 games at Oracle Arena. If they go 2-0 at home, they're going to win a championship. If they go, 1-1, then it's anybody's game. But I understand your point. Let me close on this, because Boogie Cousins was the king of Sacramento, no pun intended, Sacramento Kings, and Vlade Divac traded him without even being man enough to tell him. Not that he has to. And people get mad at Magic Johnson for walking out and saying, I'm tired of this garbage. Well, Vlade Divac turned his back on DeMarcus Cousins. He was a great ambassador for the city of Sacramento, but they didn't treat him fair, and no one really cried that Boogie Cousins didn't even know. I think it was after the All-Star game that he was dealt over to New Orleans. No one says anything about that being unfair with Vlade doing that garbage. Wouldn't it be something if Boogie Cousins comes back to Northern California and wins a championship with the Golden State Warriors, being one of the key leaders on this team, just 90 miles up from where they turned their back on him? Now he could host a championship. Does that make any sense? How much motivation will he have, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, he's had plenty of motivation, Charlton. He's gotten somewhere already this year with the Golden State Warriors that he would have never gotten in his career with the Sacramento Kings to an NBA final. But I think the bigger picture as far as Boogie Cousins is concerned, can he avoid another injury in this run? Because he is not 100% coming back into the lineup. Not only that, Charlton, he's out of shape. He's not in game shape. You got to think about, he was out a month before he played. So he didn't have great conditioning. So he's been laboring. If you look at him, he was laboring in Game 2, getting up and down the floor because he had to play extended minutes. It's going to be about time management with him. I think it would be advantageous for Steve Kerr to get Bogut some extra minutes. He needs to get Bogut at least 10 to 14 minutes in Game 3 in this series, Charlton. You got to work Gasol. You got to put a body on Gasol. You got to make Iguodala work even more, Charlton. That's when you have 2 big. You got to use them in tandem to wear down the middle of your opponent. And so I think Golden State has the advantage when it comes to Bogut and Cousins in the middle, is that they may be able to force, some fouls on Gasol, Charlton, to get him out of the lineup. Because I don't think that when we look at not Iguodala, but Serge Ibaka, is that he's as good a defender as Gasol is. So it's going to be how Steve Kerr utilizes his big men that will decide whether Golden State wins this game, because Looney has been a stalwart in the middle. But with him out of the series, you got to get the most out of Cousins and Bogut in this series.
I agree. I'm looking forward to it. I know it's exciting. A lot of people are excited in the Bay Area. You can follow Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts. You can find Big C Sports on Spotify. Find us on Speaker, on YouTube, which is doing the NBA Finals. You can find us on Xfinity, Comcast. And what I really like is the app called Alexa. When you walk into your home, say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear our sponsors come up, and then you hear the show. But Big C, I'm excited about everything that's happened in Northern California, and I know there's a guy that's excited about it too. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, tonight the Oklahoma Sooners ladies baseball team is playing for their lives. They're going up against a stalwart in Rachel Garcia, the pitcher for the UCLA Bruins, who is in a closeout game tonight where she can take the NCAA championship back to UCLA, back to the campus at Westwood. And has been longing for a championship, Charlton, since Ladden had won his last NCAA title on the men's side.
On the men's side. And I think Chip Kelly's paying attention, because if they win a national championship in softball, imagine the pressure Chip Kelly's under for the UCLA Bruins every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, is never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.